Hey everyone, Tony Winston here for Jazz Piano College. I had a request to do a bass line for My Romance. I wrote one out in the key of C, and both charts are in the description below, and you can print them out for free. So I'll hack through it once or twice, then we'll talk about it. All right, there you have it. I played through with the melody, and then I played through just kind of banging around on the chords, and hopefully they'll both make it past the copyright police. Let's talk about it a little bit. You know, this is 4 quarter notes per measure, walking bass. Now, if the drummer plays like quarter notes on the bass drum, that's called 4 on the floor, but that's really not a good thing to do in this day and age. Back in the old days, they used to kind of do that, but it's no longer a thing. You just use the bass drum for little accents and things. Okay, so one of the things you want to do is every time the chord changes, which is twice per measure, you want to hit the root first, almost always. Now, more experienced bass players know how to bend that rule, but in general, you're going to find it best to stay on the root every time the chord changes. So we start with C, and using notes in the chord is always a good idea. And then that leads us with a half-step connection right to F. And then we're going to circle back around, pick up the E, and go to the 5th of that E minor. And here, I did not play the root. But on a diminished chord, any note actually can be considered a root. So, I was on one of the notes of the chord, and then I went to the root because it took me to D minor with a half step. And, I could go like F sharp to G, but in D minor, I don't. Now, a lot of tritone substitutions. We have G and D flat, which is the tritone sub of G. And what you kind of have to do is, it'll work in any situation, but it helps if the melody is like not the 5th or the root or something like that. If it's the 3rd or the 7th, I think it works out better. Like if we're going... See, right there we're on the third, so the tritone substitution works pretty well. And if the melody was like the seventh, you see that works pretty well. But if it's like the fifth, so it kind of depends on what the melody note is, whether or not the tritone substitution will really work. D minor, and then G. And you see if we take the tritone substitution, we're okay. But if the melody had been a D, say, like that, and then we went to our tritone, and then we get a rather harsh dissonance there between the D flat and the D. So the melody can guide you as to whether or not to use the tritone sub. But, if you're just improvising and playing chords and things, you can get away with it almost every time on a dominant chord. Now let's see what I do here. We go to E7th. The tritone sub, again, works perfectly there. So there, I had A minor, and then A7th. I got away with the fifth because I'm moving to the tritone sub of A, and then to D minor, chord tone, and here the chord changed from C to C7th, but the root didn't change, so I was able to just stay with a pattern on C. All these chromatic lines are very nice. And here, again, C7th, I did not play the root because many times, you'll have a G minor to a C7th. Now, if it's written as eighth notes, make sure you swing it. Right, now on a half diminished chord, the fifth is not going to work as well as the flat five because that's what a half diminished chord is. It has a flat five in it. And of course, that takes us directly to B with a tritone sub. And once again, you see if the melody is the seventh or the third, that's always going to work well with a tritone sub. A minor, and here, we've got a 2-5-1 going back, but coming from D7th, even if everybody else in the band plays a D minor 7th, it'll sound fine because it'll just be like a suspended chord, and then we've got G7th, and we hit that melody note, which is the seventh of G, so the tritone sub works. I tried to do it a little different here in the second half. Now, so that's the second time I did not hit the root on E. Another thing, too, is you don't usually want to play the same note twice, but you can. Okay, so, that's a simpler way to do it. As a piano player, I know I might do some, block chords using the diminished chord going up the scale, that kind of thing. So it's good to have the bass line kind of follow that. Now here I have F. And, that's still a chord tone in F, but it also is the root of the next chord, so that works out nicely. And there I really couldn't think of anything else except to double those notes, so that's what I did. And to avoid doubling a note, you can go up an octave. can just turn it around any way you want. A typical way is like, or there's so many ways that you can do this. And by using these rootless voicings in the right hand, you can be a lot more creative with the bass line. So, like for instance, if I go to this for A, it's easy to play E flat or A. And then for this for D, you can change all these to dominant chords, A7, D7. And then that gives you the tritone substitution. And G, another rootless voicing, tritone sub. If I had played G like this, not as good, but probably because of that. But when I play a G like this, okay. Now, also, I'm going to play this once up in my studio on Chordy so that you can see the notes lit up, because I know some of you like it that way. All right, thanks everyone, and I'll see you again soon.